Today I'm going to be telling you a little bit of tips on designing stained glass because it's been a minute since you've all made a pattern. To start, remember when we did glass cutting the first time and I did one of these kinds of score lines across the glass? And I said, hey, is it possible for me to try and break this glass and have this whole piece as one and this whole piece as another and have it just be two pieces? The answer is no. It will find a place to break from each one of these spots because each of these, every time it's a point or a sharp turn, 90 degrees, even just any kind of point whatsoever, that's a weak spot in the glass. And so you have to have break lines that come from those points. Or you can have break lines that come up and meet those points. That's okay. You know that you can do straight lines, you can do a gentle curve, but you cannot do these crazy lines like this either because there are weak spots at all these places too. And so you would need to have break lines that would come up and they would have to take care of those spots. Also, you know when you're doing a project and you're trying to design, you know you're never supposed to do these kinds of lines. Because why? Because they'll bend. If you have something that's a curve is okay. A curve is okay this way, but it's still going to be a little bit weak. You can have a curve if you want to, and that kind of helps to take away the possibility of it bending. But you don't even want to have lines like this. And you'll see old windows that have lines like this. But usually they're accompanied by a very sturdy, heavy frame on the outside to prevent the windows from breaking, from bending especially, because of all the weight that usually is on the lowest score line that goes across. So that means any kind of line that goes all the way from one edge to another, it's crazy. So you just don't want to have these kinds of lines. Nothing that goes all the way across because it will bend. If you remember long ago in your beginning trimester, you had a symmetrical window, and there was a specific way that I would say to design stuff if you had no desire to draw any pictures of things. So this is always something that you can come back to, and you can evolve from there. Nothing has to be symmetrical. If you're just interested in breaking up the space, you can put any kind of shape to start out with and break up the circle into thirds. It has to be at least a third. Then you can start doing this kind of thing where you go, it's a line to a line or a line to an edge, a line to a line, line to an edge, line to a line, line to a line, line to a line. And by doing this and not going edge to edge, you are breaking up automatically this space. And you can continue to do this. This is such a quick and easy way to make a geometric or an abstract pattern without really much effort. Just a line to a line and a line to an edge. As long as it's not an edge to an edge that's straight, it can be curved. It can have this kind of a curve to it as well. Then you're okay. As well, here's another tippity tip for you. Speaking of tips, the longer and more narrow of a triangle that you have, the more likely it is to crack right about here or break right about here. If you have triangles that are a little bit wider at their base and they taper a lot quicker, then they're more sturdy. But the more narrow that you go, or the more curvy and narrow that you go, these are very weak. They are going to break. They break off. Now, there are ways to cut them so that if you had a piece of glass and you were trying to cut them, you can cut one side, but then when you go to cut the other side, you have to sort of veer away from it and then grind off this part. So you have to use the grinder to grind off the extra. So those are a couple of little points. These were from a project where you got to design your own window. So students would often do pictures of things. And I just want to point out ways to make your break lines work. So you know that you have points that you have to take care of. And if you have a picture of something, it's always nice to put a background in there. When you put a background in there, then it takes care of these kinds of points. It makes the whole thing look more natural. So we've got bamboo in the back, we've got leaves, and it just so happens that the veins from the leaves take care of the points from this beak. A great example of putting in break lines that look intentional. So you have a hat here in the foreground, you have break lines that go horizontally that help take care of the break lines that are needed. Instead of having just sort of antenna-like break lines going all the way out, kind of in a chaotic way, you have things in the background that help to take care of some of these points. Stars usually get drawn like this, and you always have to have a break line coming from every star. There also is a way to draw stars where you have, instead of these lines here, you have a point right in the center, and each of the lines goes to this part. Another great way to use horizontals, we've got fish in water. The waves in the water can take care of all those little pointed pieces that you need to take care of. Putting in a background for a vehicle. All of these were 8.5 by 11 drawings. So they're big enough to handle drawings like this. When you're drawing something that's small, like a lid top for a box, you want to probably consider a different subject, unless you're really, really good at drawing very, very small pieces. Think of it like this. You have all of these little pointed pieces that have to get taken care of with a break line. So, hey, let's put rocks in. That's a great way of taking care of places where break lines need to be. Always adding skies. These are stained glass clouds, and I talk about them a lot because they usually have a flat line at the bottom and then a very gentle wavy line up at the top. So this is another way of getting break lines in. If you didn't have any experience or you just didn't really know what to do, you'd just be putting these lines just sort of out here. Antenna-like lines. Mountains are a perfect example. Anytime you have these mountains that kind of go up to a point, add in a flat line, add in horizontals to make a sunset or a sunrise. Add these kind of cloud lines, but then don't even add clouds, just make it so that it's all blue. But that's a great way of making mountains without having antennas going straight up and out.